What's up, everyone? Nick here from Ghost Radio Podcasts, and as always, I'm joined with Tyler Liberty.
Hi, Tyler from Ghost Radio Podcasts, and today we're going to be going over the story of Betty and Barney Hill, one of the most famous alien abductions in all of New Hampshire.
The most widely documented in abduction alien history. So there have been books written about it. There's been movies made about it, TV shows, merchandising, comic books. It's one of the most widely documented alien abduction stories in the world during the 60s, involving an interracial couple. It's apparently, for most people, all of our comments in our comment section on Facebook, YouTube have been completely divided 50-50. Some think it's real, some think it's a complete hoax, but we can't really give our opinion because we haven't dove into any of the information or testimonies.
And luckily we'll be diving into that today and seeing, how we feel about this. If we really believe that this is actually a possibility of it happening or not.
So in September 1961, Betty and Barney Hill were driving from Montreal, Canada to Portsmouth, New Hampshire. On the way home from their belated honeymoon while driving through the White Mountains of New Hampshire, the couple experienced an extraterrestrial phenomenon that would launch them into an international spotlight and shape the dialogue around the future of supernatural encounters.
Also, Benny and Barney Hill both worked long hours in Portsmouth. Betty was a social worker who handled child welfare cases, and Barney was a postal worker who often drove 60 miles a day and worked the night shift. In addition to their full-time jobs, the couple also volunteered frequently.
And as an interracial couple before those unions were even accepted, the Hills were passionate about advancing the civil rights movement. They volunteered at their local church, and they were both members of the NAACP. And after deciding to take a well-deserved break, the Hills planned a spontaneous trip from Montreal to Niagara Falls. Though the couple had been married for 16 months, they had never been on their honeymoon, and viewed this trip as an opportune time. They got in their car and impulsively left for a 3-day trip without even stopping at the bank or getting any extra money.
And on the last night of their trip, the Hills departed the diner in Vermont around 10 p.m., hoping to make it back to Portsmouth around 2 p.m. However, as they drove, they noticed a bright light in the sky that appeared to be following them. With every mile they drove, the light grew bigger and brighter. As a World War II veteran and a plane enthusiast, Barney Hill did not think much of the light at first. As it was in the middle of the night, he figured the light could not be coming from a commercial plane or a helicopter, and assumed it was just a satellite that had gone off course.
So with the evidence that I've heard so far, it's your run-of-the-mill, cliche alien story.
Right. This is like what you would think.
We're just going to go on a trip, 3 days, nothing much. It's our honeymoon. Like, all the stars, figurative joke. Yeah. All the stars are aligning for these people. It's going to be the beginning of a trip. It's great, It's like those movies where it's like they're kissing, young couple, get on an airplane, we're going to go on vacation together, honeymoon, plane crashes, and they're stuck on an island for 3 years, and that's the movie.
Yeah, right.
So, nonetheless, the light continued to follow them. Even though they drove through the winding roads of the White Mountains, sometimes the light would move behind trees and disappear, and only reappear moments later. Eventually, the couple grew so curious that they decided to pull over and investigate. Through a pair of binoculars, Betty realized that the light was not a satellite, and was actually some sort of object spinning in the air, presumably a flying saucer. Barney also grew concerned. As a pragmatic, intellectual man, he was skeptical of any alternative guess, extraterrestrial explanation, but he had no alternative guess as to what the light could be. The couple continued driving until they reached Route 3 in Lincoln, when the object hovered just over 100 feet above their car. So, that's the beginning of an alien story. The evidence before, they were just talking, driving, it's like going on a trip out of nowhere. Now something's hovering above their car and lights in the sky.
Right.
It's officially a phenomenon. It's officially an extraterrestrial thing.
Yeah. I mean, at first, he couldn't tell what was going on, whether it was a satellite or whatever. And now it's following him.
Which is giving them much more evidence than before, because I didn't even know he was a World War II veteran. They both volunteered. They both were nice members, good members, Samaritans of their community. And they were taking time out of their days to aid others. I don't see any reason for them to lie so far. No red flags. Normal trip, interracial couple. They've been married 16 months. World War II veteran, plane enthusiast, natural hobby.
Yeah,
he doesn't seem like a kook.
Yeah, he's used to seeing things in the sky.
Yeah.
He kind of has a general idea of what's flying around and what would be around at night.
And that's before they went to the moon. The moon's not till 1969.
Yeah.
And if he was any sort of person in the war, especially World War II, where they had tons of artillery, they had tons of spy planes, During the war, you would be on edge. It's been 20 years since the war, 15 years, 17 years since the war at this time. You would still have that niche of obviously I kind of know where the government would be by this point.
Barney abruptly stopped, got out of the car with a handgun, and saw something that was so big as a jet, but as flat as a pancake. Behind the windows of the objects were beings in gray uniforms, who told Barney to put down his binoculars. He tried to raise his pistol, but somehow found himself unable to. Realizing that he was about to be captured, he ran back to the car and sped off. I mean,
Sorry.
That seems like a pretty normal thing to do, You just want to get out of that situation, especially if something's controlling you and making it so you can pull your gun out and point it at it. At some point, Benny and Barney Hill heard strange beeping noises from their trunk, felt drowsy, and eventually lost consciousness.
So, okay.
Wow.
It's an alien story now.
Right, you got an exhaust leak, or is this an alien story? What's
Someone
going
said
on?
that in the comments.
Really?
Yeah, I'll insert that here right now.
Yeah.
One of them said it was CO2 poisoning or CO poisoning. Is it... I don't huff gases, personally. Not a big gas huffer. Sorry. But have you ever had carbon monoxide poisoning, any sort of gas poisoning? I've been in a smoky room. I've been in a hot-boxed car. I've been in a house on fire. I don't remember hallucinating through, oxygen deprivation.
Carbon monoxide.
Would it make you hear beeping?
I mean, those are all things that can happen from carbon monoxide. So, not the beeping part. You wouldn't be hearing that. I mean,
from the trunk. You're conscious enough to say, I'm hearing beeping in the trunk. You just saw a flying saucer above you with beings in gray suits. Okay.
Yeah, you gotta... Yeah, for sure.
Were they saying they were carbon dioxide poisoning from a bad muff?
We're gonna insert a photo that it's actually showing on here above. You can tell us what you think about that.
Yeah, this is their description of the vehicle, and as you can see what the paper says right here, it says, this is how it looked when it was about 200 feet away. Or 200 feet high, sorry.
This is Betty Hill's drawing of the alien spacecraft.
Yep, top part is, this is how it looked when it was 200 feet high with a red light on one side. And the bottom part is showing, this is how it looked after shifting over highway, descending to about 100 feet over the field. Wait. Descending over the field towards their car before it got to the top of their car. Okay, that makes sense. I thought I was like, okay, now they're lying. Finn, this slid from the side with a red light. Okay. I mean, occupants inside, obviously. This is obviously a extraterrestrial story at this point.
Right. No. This is Definitely took a big change in story than what I thought right off.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm not screaming bullshit. I don't really see the red flags yet.
No, it definitely seems like your typical, normal alien abduction
Your
kind of story.
cliche.
Besides the whole gun part, but I mean, you would think. When you would think in a movie or something, that's something you would think
and
that would happen as a cliche.
You know? He did the white guy thing where he's like, I'm gonna go check it out, like go into the haunted house with like killers in it and not know.
Yeah, but he's also a veteran, so he was like, I'm going to check this out.
Of course,
we're gonna see what's going on.
Every person in the 50s and 60s had a gun in their car, binoculars,
they're all badass,
and like a hand radio.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly.
Like, when you think of nowadays, it's like, well, my boyfriend's a professional gamer, my boyfriend's a that. Go back 40 years and listen to what the women would say. The women would be like, my husband killed Nazis when he was 19 years old and was in a world war.
Yeah.
You think your man's cool today? Dude, back in the day, they were icing people at like 18 for a world effort. Think about that.
Yeah.
That's what their men looked like.
Different generation, man.
Different generation. All right, I'll jump back into the story. We're going to take down the photo, of course. The next morning, the couple woke up in their house in Portsmouth with no recollection of the events from the night before. However, Barney's shoes had been scuffed, Betty's dress has been torn, and both of their watches had stopped working.
That is just crazy. Like your watches, both of your watches.
You could only do that
working
with an EMP, electromagnetic pulse.
That's what I was thinking. The first thing right off the bat was like a shock charge or something.
But in the 50s, I mean 1961, do people readily have that?
That makes me wonder, did the car fuses all blown in the car and all that stuff in the battery?
But from carbon monoxide poisoning?
Yeah, no.
So no. So we can take that out.
Yeah, no, see, exactly. Carbon monoxide poisoning.
And their watches must have stopped. I wonder if their watches stopped at the same time. Did one stop after the other one? How many cranks?
That makes you wonder, yeah.
Exactly. If they're at the same time, that means the gear, if they had the same watches, that is. But back in the 50s and 60s, people were etiquette was a big thing, People wore their suits. People were nice and clean cut and shaven. Like, hey, how you doing, Jack? Haha, how's the newspaper man doing? They were very howdy doody time. They were very trimmed, primmed, and proper. Like, going to the powder room was women taking shit back in the 50s. Yeah. So if you think about it in that way, noticing scuffs on your shoes would be a obvious thing. You would obviously be like, well, son, that wasn't there.
Like, no one's gonna scuff Jimmy's shoes.
They had, Jimmy had a shoe shining stand. It was the 60s.
Exactly.
There was kids down there making money.
Yeah.
Both of the watches stopped working. So trying to piece together what happened, Betty spent hours in the library reading about the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, NICAP, a civilian UFO group. She also filed a report to the Air Force concerned about radiation. In the next couple of years, the couple suffered from disturbing dreams and anxiety, and they began seeing a psychiatrist named Benjamin Simon who helped them piece together what happened on that night. And we're going to be inserting a photo of Betty Hill's dress from that encounter. This is the torn dress that she mentioned a few moments earlier.
It's just crazy how it's torn, right?
Where it's torn.
Like a
double-layered shirt. I mean, to be fake, though, clothes were expensive in the day.
But that tear, it's like...
I wonder if they did radiation testing on the clothes themselves.
Right.
Wasn't that a thing? There was like, Dan Aykroyd mentioned it. There were stains on the dress. I'm going to insert that clip on Joe Rogan right here.
That there were abductions, but
the Betty and Barney Hill story is very interesting, but there's no real evidence other than their testimony. Is that correct?
Well, there was a stain on Betty's dress. There's her excellent recall.
Through months of sessions in hypnosis, a popular technique at the time, the couple began to recall what happened to them. According to the Hills, the UFO had landed on their car as they were speeding down the mountains and put them to sleep.
Okay. So they put them to sleep. So, okay, here's the deal. If it was carbon monoxide poisoning and they were put to sleep, they would be sleeping while driving. They would have crashed.
Exactly. Now, we don't know if they crashed or not yet.
Exactly.
We haven't got further down.
But if they crash, why would that make their watches stop working? How did they get home?
Right, that wouldn't make sense there. Because the car crash is not going to stop your watches unless your watch is broke.
Yeah, and only scuff a shoe and tear your dress.
Exactly. The gray beings they had seen earlier had led them up to a long ramp into the spacecraft. Once inside, the hills were separated and individually tested. They were asked to climb on a metal table and remove their clothes, where the gray beings would pluck their hairs, take clippings from their nails, and peel off parts of their skin. Each sample was placed on something that resembled a glass slide. The gray beings also probed needles into their arms, legs, and head. Betty recalled that one needle was even inserted into her stomach as a pregnancy test. Like, that just makes you think, like, were they tested after? Did they check and see if
there was wounds,
samples, skin
wounds.
samples were taken from them?
We don't know even if they were radioactive or not. Did they have not EKGs? What is it when you can tell if foreign bodies or foreign objects, like MRIs and stuff, X-rays?
Yeah, or it makes you think though. But like, also like what we had a conversation about before. But maybe they were in like a different time where, you know, they had time to be there and heal before they were back.
Oh, the time lapse.
Like a time lapse.
Yeah, time loss. Yeah. So it's a common alien story trope to where you have missing time. So it'll be like the thing like
a minute here, it could have been like
a
year over there.
I was in the woods for 20 minutes. It's like you've been gone for 2 days.
Exactly, like those kind of things.
But your perception of time is not remembering you going to sleep or going somewhere to another place. What sort of suspended animation do you think these beings, creatures, aliens, future us, what sort of sustainable, like, pausing of reality do you think they have? Do they age? Do they age differently than us? Could we tell if we were put under and brought back? Like, what would be the repercussions metaphysically or biologically to our bodies? Because there's so much of aliens taking tests, probing us, you know, putting something up your butt is the cliche thing. Now, what's your theory on why do you think they're taking and testing us or probing us? What do you think their end goal would be?
That's a hard question. I mean, there could be so many different reasons. I mean,
like to learn.
One of the first things that come to my mind is to learn or to see how, you know, our body
we're
is.
That alien to them.
Yeah.
They don't understand human biology, which they would be curious.
Oh, completely.
What if they need genetic material to continue their kind and they're searching for stuff that we, like, donors, like we use pig hearts and stuff like that in surgery. Right. That's a common trope these days because of our surgical advancements.
Maybe we have something with our body that, you know, allows certain things to happen and they want that too, you know?
Dude, like, that's like maybe those super villain. Like that's weird. We'll get into conspiracies and theories on another episode. We're gonna stick to aliens, keep it a little bit normal.
Right, like, but like you don't know. Who knows? That could be just for learning or, you know,
curiosity.
Yeah,
they're just human beings in the same solar system we're in.
Yeah,
if they're
and there might be more than just them. You know.
Yeah.
Like this could be more than just the first run in.
Oh, what if we're the 15,000th type of being they've come across?
Exactly.
And like every planet we go to, they're different.
And they could be just researching and seeing what's different between them.
What if they are the real Noah's Ark? They're the Noah's Ark of the universe, gathering biomaterial, 2 of each species. They always get a woman and a man. They always get a female and a male.
That'd be crazy.
2 of each animal, remember? The male and female, like lions, elephants,
yeah, but
everything.
that'd be chaos because you don't know how they would act those species that you're.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
They're Noah's Ark for the universe. We don't know.
Yeah. Throughout the ordeal, Betty and Barney Hill claimed that one of the beings was the leader, who was observing the process from the side. Later, alone with the leader, Betty asked where the craft had flown. Under hypnosis, she replicated the star map shown to her on the ship. Years later, a woman named Marjorie Fish attempted to interpret Betty's reproduction of the map and concluded that the beings had come from the star system Zeta Reticuli.
That's the same star system. Bob Lazar from Area 51, he worked at a department-based reverse engineering propulsion systems from alien craft, supposedly. And Zeta Reticuli is something that Bob remembered reading in his intake that took several weeks at a time to do his full intake. And he mentioned Zeta Reticuli. And in the 50s and 60s, that's not widely known information. The government doesn't release that because of war propaganda. They don't want other countries knowing our advancements or understanding of the universe, because it can be used against us or we can use it against them. So having knowledge like that isn't very widely known at that time. Bob Lazar mentioned that he worked at an area department in S4, like I said, reverse engineering alien technology, supposedly. But he said that in the 80s, I think around 87, 88, 89. Though the story of Betty and Barney Hill was not the first tale of alien abduction, theirs was the most well-documented and feasibly legitimate. After this encounter, Betty Hill continued doing research for UFOs for the remainder of her life. And the story of the Hills has become the most widely publicized alien encounters in history. It even shaped the way alien encounters are discussed today. So, putting Betty and Barney Hill, thank you, putting New Hampshire on the map.
Yeah, we're not saying that it was the biggest thing in New Hampshire now. Now we're saying
one of the
biggest things in history.
In history.
Alien abduction.
So in order, if we're going by date, it's going like Roswell 1947 to Betty and Barney Hill.
Yep.
That's a pretty big deal. That's a very large thing for a small Lily Lavender Granite State 2-horse town place in the 60s. Like, we think it gets busy during Bike Week, but imagine in the 60s finding out, like, local New Hampshire interracial couple is abducted by aliens, and it's like actually legitimized by evidence. Wow. And we haven't even gotten to most of the evidences yet.
For the Hills experience, aliens were portrayed as friendly creatures who would commute back and forth between Earth and their home planets. However, after the Hills shared their story, alien abductions became better known for their mystery and intrigue. Alien movies and sci-fi novels like The X-Files started to include common tropes, such as medical examinations and missing time. Although the Hills both since passed away, their legacy and the events that occurred in the White Mountains in 1961 have not been forgotten.
And I'm inserting another picture of the sign that you will go to. This is a plaque in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, commemorating the Hills.
Well, it said it on there. It said that she devoted the rest of her life to it because that's how much the incident changed their lives.
Well, think about it. Even after her husband passed away, do you consider this reliable information?
What makes me think that it's reliable is the star map.
Okay.
Now that's where they got me, because for you to go through hypnosis, draw, and then say you remember stuff, draw out a star map, and then somebody scientifically proves that those stars really did exist, and those were where they were around the other stars and where they were. Putting a couple under hypnosis.
And
Like,
if you think about it,
they could have been a random couple that this never happened at all. And they're not going to just be like, yeah, this random Joe Smo just got abducted by, said he got abducted by aliens. And we're going to pay to have sessions done to you and have hypnosis done to you. You must have been reputable.
and being a World War II veteran, the whole broken soldier, shell-shocked, if he had any sort of debilitating state of mind, it would have shown 15 years after the war had happened. 43 to 46, 45. It's 61. It is several decades later from the last World War that he was involved in. And you think that any sort of signs of dementia, post-traumatic stress disorder, shell shock, you think that would show. So he's a widely educated, military-valored man. She's a educator and a provider. They both volunteer. No backgrounds of any sort of psychosis. I don't see any red flags.
Yeah. I mean, he's still driving a car, too.
Yeah.
So
has the state of mind to always
yeah.
keep a radio, binoculars, gun.
Yeah.
Anyone with a clear state of mind both recollect the same story because the same thing happened. No,
Yeah,
okay.
and if you didn't have a clear state of mind, you probably wouldn't have a gun either.
Okay. Now, devil's advocate, let's flip the script. They made it all up. Why? What in their life was like? Was their life in shambles? Did they not have enough money? Were they looking for popularity? What would be the reason for them to fake it on their honeymoon? Spontaneous trip. They didn't stop at any stores.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of it is fakeable, honestly. Like,
It's hearsay. It's a
replace the
story.
batteries in your watches with dead batteries.
Got it.
Okay, now both of your watches are dead. Solved.
Okay.
Cut that piece out.
Throw
of
it out
the
the car.
dress. Whatever. Toss it. Get rid of it.
If this was all premeditated,
Exactly.
let's make up the
Scuff
story.
your shoes up.
Yep. Don't you think you'd be
You
something
don't have
like
to worry about the light in the sky because no one has
no one was
pictures
there?
of the light
Don't
in
you
the sky.
think he would be like, oh, it scraped me with its big 3 green fingers
Right.
and like put 3 marks on his chest?
Yeah.
Why would he do such an insignificant detail of a scuffed shoe? Because it was the only thing that he noticed was out of place.
But the map of the stars.
Yeah, you keep going back to the stars. Yes, Zeta
Because that
Reticuli.
is
It's not widely known information in the
That
in the
is
60s.
such an important piece of information right there. Because
it's hard to replicate.
exactly, no matter how far you went.
In Health and Human Services, what sort of form of astrology are you researching on the daily basis about star
1961.
maps? Exactly. Widely
Yeah.
public known information
Let me just hop on Google and do a bunch of research.
at the library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From somebody who has equipment good enough to even see that far.
Dude, the Hubble? Can I
Yeah.
just use the Hubble as a child services worker? Like, yes, World War II veteran.
Yeah.
That doesn't just give you a card to go into any military base and be like, let's look at the stars.
So we pulled up a telescope.
And it's what she remembered, not him. He's the military veteran that has any sort of
Right.
clearance above her. She works with
Exactly.
children child services.
See, if you work with NASA, you know,
And she's like, I know of these star
Right.
maps. They came to me in a dream. That's
Yeah.
a bit fishy.
that exactly. Then it's like, hey, he let her come over. You know, she looked through the
Remember this,
telescope.
remember this,
She was
remember this.
drawing. You know, had a good picnic, and they planned the whole escape. Okay, that doable. Okay, that's doable.
Well, I think it's a really compelling story. I don't think we can come to a conclusion with only one episode. Ghost Radio Podcast First, Part 2. We're not done yet. We haven't done the outro. We both want to say from Ghost Radio New Hampshire, Ghost Radio Podcast, that we want to thank the audience so much for getting involved by giving us so many comments, likes, subscriptions. Just from the first episode alone, you guys have been incredibly active in anything that we have uploaded. But most of all, we wanted to give you a big thank you for being so involved in this. We want to be able to do a podcast where we can interact with our community. Your 2 cents matters in every episode. Every time you leave a comment, we take it to heart, we review it, we like it personally. We just want to say thank you again from Nick and Tyler from Ghost Radio Podcast. This has been part 1 of the Betty and Barney Hill UFO incident in Franconia Notch, New Hampshire. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Ghost Radio New Hampshire on YouTube. Don't forget to like our content, share our content, and we'll always like and reply to every single comment. Please don't forget to suggest new episodes or topics down in the comment section below. Hover over the like button about 100 feet above our car. But
And if you have to, make 1,000 more alternate accounts and just hover over that like button again.
Views of you, man. Watch it twice. Help us out, dude. Keep all the 17 lights that I have on. So this has been Ghost Radio New Hampshire. I'm Nick Venable.
I'm Tyler, and we'll tune in next week for a new episode.